Welcome to DevOps Accents, a podcast on everything around DevOps, public cloud, and cloud-native topics, with your hosts, Pablo, Leo, and Kirill.
Hello and welcome into another episode of DevOps Accents, a podcast where we, the co-founders of MKDev, get together to discuss all things around DevOps, cloud-native technologies, artificial intelligence, data, anything that gets into our attentions. We are from MKDev, a company that provides consultancy on DevOps, cloud, data, and everything around it. And here on DevOps Accent, a podcast, we discuss this with the guests that we'd like to talk to, we'd like to share their opinion with you. And if this is not the first time that you are listening to us, you're coming to hear us, give us likes, give us your subscribes, because today we have a guest, Ara Pulido. Hi, Ara.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Leo.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Ara is a developer advocate at Datadog, and she's a certified Kubernetes administrator. She has more than 10 years of experience working on infrastructure, open source companies, and she's an active member of developers community. And thank you for coming again. How you've been?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm super glad to be here. I'm looking forward to discussing anything that you have in mind. Happy always to be open about anything.
Cool. Sounds great. And today with me here, also Pablo is a co-host. Hi, Pablo.
Hello, everyone. How are you, Leo? How are you, Ara?
Fine. Great to have you both here. Let's start with my favorite question to our guests, like a smaller tradition. Given the name of our podcast, DevOps Accents, what is your accent, Ara?
My accent has always been on anything Linux related. And that brought me to different areas of the Linux ecosystem. Right now, I'm mostly focus on containers and anything containers. But yes, I think that my accent, what would be my career accent, always has been Linux and everything around it.
How did you start it? Like how? I always ask people. I have a lot of friends from the developer community who are mostly men. And it's for a lot of them, it's an obvious, we are technicians, we like this, we are geeks, and like this. And I have a number of girlfriends from the same, and it's for them, it's always a different story how they end up in a technological company, how they end up being a developer or programming. What's your story in this regard? How did you end up here?
My story is actually pretty boring. I'm not a career switcher. I'm not coming from a different background. It's actually a pretty boring story. I always liked computers when I was a child. I had an Amstrad CPC back then. I started doing some basic programming when I was like 8, 9. It was very, very basic. Not only the programming language, but also the programs that I would create. I was having how to program book for kids, and I would do some small loops and things like that. Very, very basic stuff. But I really liked it. So when I had to choose my bachelor's and my master's, I decided to do computer science. So that's what I did. A very traditional background. I went to high school, and then when I college, I did computer science, and here I am. So very, very, very traditional, very boring.
And giving your career, like if you look at your LinkedIn profile and explore your path, how you moved from one role to another, transitioning to engineering manager, and then to developer advocate, like what were the skills and experiences that, so to say, facilitated your career changes?
Yes, I think in my case, even though I went through a very traditional path of going to college and then doing computer science, etc. Once I started my career, I think I've changed roles many times, and I think that's one of the benefits of working on something like software, where there are many different things that you can do, and careers are very long. Like, you have time to do a lot of things. So I started being a software engineer, then not in Linux. So even though I always like to do something related to Linux, during my university years, I was on the Linux user group of my city, the city that I went to university at, which is Granada, in the south of Spain. And I was part of the Linux user group. I was very involved on that community. But then I started working, as a software engineer, not related to Linux. I was actually a web developer, and then I moved to be a .NET developer in an insurance company in London, so not really related to Linux. And then I was a software engineer doing automated testing on a telco as well. But then I got the opportunity to move to Linux as a career. I got an offer by Canonical, the company behind Ubuntu, and that's I think where really my path to system engineering as a career started. And at Canonical, I spent many years, especially maybe not so common for maybe software engineers to spend that many years in the same company, but I was really happy there, and I was learning a lot all the time. So I spent there 9 years. So even at Canonical, I started changing jobs as well, a lot, but always obviously on Linux, and everything like that. So at Canonical, I got the opportunity as well to get my first job as an engineer manager. So I spent, I think, the first 4 years at Canonical as an individual contributor, and then I moved to management. So I spent five years and a half, more or less, as an engineer manager at Canonical. And then when I decided to leave Canonical, I went to a company called Bitnami that was acquired later on by VMware as an engineer manager as well, for the SRE team and the Kubernetes team. And I think I really like being an engineer manager. There are a lot of skills that you gain. It's still very technical, even though you have to do another type of job as well. So it's something that I really like to do. But one of the things that because 5 years plus the 2 that I spent at Bitnami was like 7.5 years as an engineer manager. At that point, I think you have two paths that you can, that you have multiple, as I say. Like, one of the great things about being in software is that you can do many things and change careers several times during your career. But I think at that point, there is this, if you're want to continue on that path, that's fantastic. You can go and move to be a director, an engineering director, then a VP, etc. Or, as in my case, I decided that I wanted to be an IC again for a while. I don't know for how long. But one of the things that when I was deciding that I wanted to do individual contributions again, then I had to decide what I wanted to do, if I wanted to do just pure engineering again, or something else. And one of the things that I really didn't want to lose is all that communication skill that I had gained as a manager. And at the same time, I had given several talks at conferences, technical talks, while I was at Canonical and when I was at Bitnami as well. And I really liked that concept of having to explain a technical concept or a topic to an audience and trying to distill how you're able to explain it and write a small demo, write a small some piece of code that go with that explanation. So all that I really liked. Actually, being on stage, I'm not a natural, so it's something that I had to learn. I remember my first talk at a conference when I was at Canonical. I was super nervous. It was like why did I sign up in the first place to do this? But then you get used to it. And because I really like the part of doing all that research, etc. When I was thinking what to do, I thought maybe developer advocacy could be something that I enjoy. I didn't know, obviously, unless you try, you never know if you're going to like one thing or another. I decided to give it a try, and it's been almost 5 years now, and still super happy. So very, very glad with that decision.
Because Ara, for the people that doesn't know, what is the role of a developer advocate? Because normally every huge company has one or several developers advocate, but there are people that doesn't know. What is your role? What do you have to do every day?
So developer advocacy, one of the things that happens is that, and I think it happens as well on what does a software engineer does. Like it depends a lot on your specific role on the specific company that you work for. But to give a little bit of summary, usually the companies that have a developer advocacy roles are companies that either the main product or a sub-product, the final users are developers. And by developers, I mean anyone in IT. Like, could be developers, could be operators, it could be security folks, but DevSecOps folks, if you want to put a name on it. And the reason is because this type of products, our engineering products, are built by engineers for engineers. But the thing is that usually the engineers who are working on the end product are working on a very, very specific thing, and they usually cannot, or they have a more difficult time to understand how to see the wider picture, on how to see the wider picture. So developer advocates, what we try to do is a way to have people to talk from developer to developer on how you're going to be a better engineer by following some patterns and following some solutions that we are trying to put into place. So in the case of Datadog, to put an example, Datadog is an observability and security platform. So basically trying to explain why having a good observability strategy when you're coding will help you later on when you have an incident, because you will. So that try to help people doing their work better by explaining some good patterns that you can follow. That's where developer advocacy comes in. And that takes the form of giving talks at conference, creating workshops, creating blogs, creating code, example codes that people can reuse, documenting APIs. It has many, many different forms. So the good thing is that it's a very diverse role, and if you like tinkering with technology, like I do, for me it's almost perfect. I prefer role because you're able to tinker with a lot of technology. You're able to speak to a lot of other developers about their problems or how they're trying to solve them. So very, very diverse. If you for people who are watching didn't know that this is a possible career path, if you like tinkering with technology and talking to people, give it a try because it's lots of fun.
Because I can see there is a part of feedback where you receive the feedback from people and then you try to introduce this feedback in the company. But there is a big part of marketing too, no?
Yes.
So is how it is that? Is 50-50 or?
So I think it depends a lot on the company and the type of. So in the case, again, because advocacy is kind of a newer role, even though there have been advocates with that title or different title for a long, long time. I think it also depends a lot on the company. Some companies, developer advocacy is part of the marketing organization straight away. and that's their main role, is to help the marketing function. And in some of the companies, like Datadog, for example, is part of product and engineering. And I think the goals are a little bit different. Obviously, you need to help other engineers understand you're making not so much understanding the product, but also making the most value out of it. So by explaining how you would use as an engineer as well. But I think the goals are a little bit different.
Okay, because while I'm listening to you, I'm learning. Because I'm one of the people who didn't entirely understand the role of developer advocacy. And before we start, I had to try to wrap up my head around the concept, and I had this understanding that when you are a developer advocate, what you advocate for, are you advocating for the developers or the company, or is like being someone in between who is cheering for the product for the developers, or who is protecting the developers and their practices in front of the company or their stakeholders, or maybe it's even like some unionization for the developers. so this kind of thing. And it's, from what you are describing, it's so a wide range of responsibilities, and like you have to communicate with almost all departments, product,
Yes,
right, developers, marketing, probably like end users that you explained, that when the product end users of the product are the developers, so you're communicating with them as with users and as with the developers of the same product. And it's a very broad range of responsibilities, and in the end, who is benefiting from having this role in the company the most?
so I think both benefit. So I think the obviously the company benefits from the role. If not, they wouldn't have the role in the first place. But it's two-folded. So I think the company benefits because the end users who are using your product are going to understand better the value of your product and are going to use it better. And because they are going to use it better, and they're going to understand why the product in the first place, and they're going to be better engineered because of it, then there are more retention. Like the customers are going to be able, okay, I'm going to stay because this is providing a lot of value. So that's the benefit for the company, but it's the same benefit for the end user, because they're actually doing their work better because of it. So I think even if it's because of the same thing, I think both benefits. But definitely there has to be value for the company. If not, they wouldn't have the role in the first place, for sure.
You need to understand, Leo, that at the end, when Aras is in an event, she goes not only with the Datadog teaser, she goes with, because she's Datadog. And for me, this is super cool, these kind of roles. I like that. There are another people that for me is crazy why the companies pay this person to be a developer advocate, like, Victor Farsik. For me, it's something like, because you go to the talks of Victor and you never know who is the company that paid to him, because he's giving talks about the thing that he's selling, and he go to the places like a developer advocate paid by outbound company. But okay, this is different topic. But I think that these developer advocate roles for me is something fantastic, and is something very, very good made by companies, because at the end you make something like a gate between the companies and the people, and you hear fantastic talks, and you understand what is new and all these kind of things by an engineer, not by a marketing person. And I think this is the good point here.
But speaking about effectiveness, can you guys, Pablo and you, give us an exact example of maybe, I don't know, a successful developer advocacy program and the impact they had on a specific example? Like, I did this and this benefited that. So to give us and the listeners a better understanding what to expect and when we need to understand this is a job of developer advocate, not some marketing effort.
So I think for me, when I'm preparing a talk, and or a talk or a blog post or a workshop or anything that any content that I produce, my North Star, when I always have a North Star of what I want to do, and my North Star when I create content is that this has to be useful for people who've never been Datadog customers, nor will ever be. So that's my North Star. So when I'm preparing content, it's like, even if the person who listens to me is never going to be a Datadog customer, is this going to be helpful for them? And if the answer is yes, I'm on the right path. And if the answer is no, then I have to go for a different thing. And obviously that depends, because I also go to the Datadog's main conference, which is Dash. At Dash, most of the people who go to Dash are either prospects or customers of Datadog. And I do workshops on things related to Kubernetes. And at that point, I can assume that people are going to be using Datadog. So in my workshop, I use a lot of Datadog and how they can use Datadog, for example, to understand the performance of their applications in Kubernetes and things like that. So you have to think as well about the context where you're giving that type of workshop or talk. But if I go to a generalistic conference, if I go to DevOps Days Geneva, for example, my North Star is always that one, is that whatever I talk about has to be useful regardless of that person being a customer, so never will be a customer.
Mm-hmm. So I can see this as an engineering blog, many companies, and the most prominent example maybe would be Netflix. They had their awesome engineering blog where the engineers from the company, they talk about how they tackle certain issues and create different parts of the product. And it's not like they are promoting the platform, the movies, or anything. They just share the knowledge with other developers. And I've been discussing this with another experts, and the way how they explained to me what is the benefit for the company having this kind of expertise is presents the company and the engineering team as a professionals, experts. It increases the value of being an engineer in this company. And I think maybe even HR department benefits from this, because the engineers themselves make your company look valuable and interesting place to work at.
Yes, but I think that's different, because the end user of Netflix is not an engineer, is everyone who has a TV. So the goal of the engineering blog at Netflix is to make sure that people who want to work at Netflix understand the type of problems that they're solving. It's more a recruiting tool, which is fantastic. I think every engineering company should do that. But the end product of Netflix is not for developers unless you're using some kind of API or things like that. In the case of Datadog, or in the case of AWS, or in the case of GCP, or any tech company that is going to be used by developers, that's a different type of thing. Like, you try to help people who may use, or may not, but actually the people who are using the tool as well. In the case of for example, of Datadog, we also have an engineering blog who are written by our engineers explaining how we solve things at Datadog internally, how we build the Datadog itself. We also have a program called Datadog On, that I'm part of that team of the host of that. Is more a series of videos where we invite engineers at Datadog who are working on a very specific thing to talk about that problem that they're solving. And in those cases, the target of that are engineers who may be interested in working at Datadog and wants to know the type of problems that we are solving in the engineer at Datadog. I think those two things are slightly different because they have slight different goals.
The cloud tech industry is evolving so fast. Do you keep up with it by improving your skills or upskilling your team? At MKDev, we offer a variety of workshops for just that, from the basics to expert knowledge. Before delivering our workshops and training sessions, we carry out a detailed assessment of each participant. To make sure the workshop is helpful for you and your team, we will add more content to it or throw out what you already know. Or we create a custom workshop specifically for the needs of your team and the specifics of your project.
And you also mentioned community feedback before, and how developer advocates influence product development through community feedback. How does this process work in practice?
So, I think that one of the important things, as if you want to be successful as a developer advocate, is in that part of the role is to build a lot of rapport with product managers at your company. Like, obviously, not everything. Like, usually because of the different background that people in my team has. For example, some people are front engineers, some people are back engineers, some of us are more on the DevOps SRE background. So depending on where you are, you're going to be talking on or touching an area of the product more than other. But I think it's super important, and I think that's the most critical thing, is to build that rapport with the product managers, to meet with them on a regular basis, understand what those teams are doing, etc. Once you have that ecosystem in your own company, like you understand who those people are and they understand who you are, then you're going to be a lot more successful of providing that feedback because they trust you. So it's building trust. Very, very important. It's like not this random person in the company is giving me feedback. Is Ara, who I know talks to developers on a regular basis, that understand the topic, that knows what Kubernetes is and understand Kubernetes. So when I receive that feedback, when I say I mean the product manager. When the product manager receives that feedback, it's more likely that they take it into account. So I think, as anything in this type of role, that it's kind of bridging the gap between two communities. One is the internal community at your company, one is the external community, but it's not part of the roadmap, let's say. I think it's very, very important to build that trust with the people inside your company, build that trust with the people outside your company, and being able to provide that feedback. So it's not a magic wand. It's really building those relationships.
And giving the feedback loop, the feature prioritizations. I can imagine this is a part of product manager role, and how the hierarchy between you and product managers is set. Who is where? Like, do you have the final word on the product? Because there are developers you're advocating for, or they still have, or it works entirely different.
No, so it's a product. At the end of the day, the product is owned by the product manager, the product owner. That's why I was saying that it's very, very important to build those relationships. So it's less about saying you have to do that because I say so. It's more about having those conversations and ensuring it's really advocating for the user. It's less imposing. It's imposing a thing, but it works. I mean, if you've taken the time of building those relationships, again, that's why I meant that I said before that the first thing that you need to do in order to be successful is to build in those relationships with product managers. Once you do that, your voice is going to be heard a lot more. and you're going to be able to influence a lot more of those decisions. But at the end of the day, it's the product manager's decision. You're just trying to influence that decision.
In the end, this is the role of a person whose goal is to provide an external look and help other people to, to wake up from their routine and to look at what they're doing from a different angle and get another inspiration. And that's what you are doing. How do you think, what do you like about it, about this part? Like the most, is it communicating with people, or like feeling that what you are doing matters for the company, for the people you're working with, or it's knowledge? Like, what's your main motivation here?
I think the second that you mentioned, like knowing that you're doing the right thing. At the end of the day, one of the benefits of working in a company that which main product is used by engineers is that it's really easy to be empathetic about your users because you're one of them. Like it's very easy to know if this were to be better, someone will be happier in their daily job. So the thing about building that empathy with the user in a tech company is very easy. It's like at the end of the day, it's like you are the user. Datadog is users of Datadog. So we are dog fooding our product every day. So really, I think the motivation is that one. It's like making sure that the product is the best it can be for other engineers, like for your peers, for your colleagues, in order for them to be successful at their jobs.
What I like in this role is that, okay, there is no engineer who loves to sell. So when you try to hire an engineer and you tell to him, okay, you need to sell that product, no, this is not my job. So, I am an engineer, I engineer things. But the good thing with this role is that you're not selling a thing, but you are helping to increase the sales and to increase to improve the way that the people see the company, because at the end is what you mean. If there is a problem, I am here, I am talking with the engineers, and it's equals talk, and then the people is happy.
Yeah, but I disagree with the engineers don't like to sell. I think a little bit of a stereotype there, because
in my experience, at least.
No, I mean it depends. It depends of what type of engineer. There are tons of fantastic sales engineers that are super professional. They're great to work with, and at the end of the day, they have to sell the product, but they are engineers and they love. I know a lot of sales engineers who are fantastic, and it's very inspiring as well to know people who are a little bit different than you in the sense of their skills. So when I talk to sales engineers who are really extremely good, and they know the product inside out, and they know every decision why they were made, and they're able to sell it, I think it's also very inspiring and you learn a lot, like, because sometimes it's very easy to get surrounded by people who are more or less like you, and not talking to people who have different skills. And sales engineers are one type of engineer who is very specific on the things they like, on their skills, and they love selling. So those, I would say that there are engineers who like to sell, and they do it very, very well. And you can learn a lot from them.
You're basically destroying the stereotypes that a lot of people have about engineers, the developers, programmers. They imagine that they're like the geeky persons with glasses sitting at their desktops, not talking to people, communicating with the computer. And now we have this kind of like a conjunction between public representative and the engineering, and it's cool to know that there are people who at the same time can be passionate about being exposed to other opinions and talk to them, communicate with them, building a relationship with them, and being as well great in engineering. This creates a whole new level of understanding and of my understanding of how the current environment in the company, the tech company, builds. And this leads me to another question, like how, like there are a lot of managers who listens to us now, and how they can understand that they need a person like you, a developer advocate in their company. Like what factors come to play for them to understand that? Like, does it like either the size of the company matters, or it's a product they're developing, or it's not related, an entirely different thing that will help them understand we need this person?
I would say that the main thing is that whether they're building a product, or it doesn't have to be the main product of the company, but as a product as well, that the main users are developers. That's the main thing. So is your product, and it doesn't have to be the main thing. Like if you have a product that is not meant to use by developers, the end product, but you have a public API for people who build applications on top of your platform, for example, that product is super important, and the main users are going to be developers. So if you have a product or a sub-product that is very important and they are going to be used by developers, I think it's super useful regardless of the size of the company. Obviously, if you're a startup and the engineering team is 20 people, 25 people, probably the only person, if you have a developer advocate, is going to be one person. It's very common that at startups that try to build products for developers, developer tools or APIs or anything like that, they have one person, and it's usually they have one person once they go up to maybe 15 developers or 20 developers. And then they realize that they have to have someone who doesn't have to be coding all the time in order to be able to do these type of tasks. As the company grows, obviously the team grows. You have more products, you have more different areas of expertise. For example, I'm not a front-end developer, and Datadog has part of the products that are aimed for like real user monitoring or synthetics, so things like that are really meant for front-end developers. I cannot talk. I like to talk to them, but I'm not a front-end developer. I wouldn't know what type of problems they have or what. Going back to that thing of, I think it's very important to feel empathetic about your users because you're one of them. So it becomes a lot more difficult when you go outside the area of your expertise. So as a company grows and the areas that they're trying to focus on are wider, they usually need a bigger team with different type of expertise. But going to your question, how a manager can know if this is what they need, I think I really think developer advocacy is a global role in the company. So regardless, if you decide that the best place to put your developer advocacy is marketing, you have your reasons, and it's probably the right option for your company. If you decide to place them under engineering, probably it's because you have your reasons and it's the right reasons for your company. If you decide to place them at product, that's also fine. But at the end of the day, it's a global one. So you really have to have buy-in from the higher up. You have to, from your execs, they have to understand why this role that could be on different places in the company is important, why that organization is important, because if not, it's going to be very difficult. If it's a single manager in engineering deciding this, it's going to be very difficult first to make that communication being more fluid between the different places of the company, but also help the rest of the company understand why there is advocacy in the first place.
I see. And speaking of an exact person who is going to take a lead in this particular role, who this person should be, like how to understand this person will be a good advocate on this role?
I think there are several types. Again, when we started the conversation, I said that I wasn't a natural on stage. I had to learn. I really like the technical aspect of it, of going very deep into a topic, understanding how I can explain it better, and then being on a stage was like secondary part of it, and I had to do it. But there are other people who are the opposite. There are people who are good technically, and they are going to create fantastic technical talks. But it's almost, I wouldn't say secondary, but it's the less important part for them. For them, being on stage, talking to people, gathering feedback, that's the good thing. So I think you don't have one of the things that people think when they see developer advocacy, they think they have to be this perfect extrovert who likes to talk to everyone. By no means, this is not me. So, and I've been so successful so far. I've been 5 years in the role, and I've been promoted a couple of times. So, without being that type of person, I'm able to be successful. So, I think it can be anyone. I think can be anyone who likes to do several things, and that was me from the very beginning of my career. So for me, I really like to change projects every year, a couple of years, even in the same company, doing different things, and learning new things all the time. You have to love to learn new things all the time, and being out of your comfort zone and decide that you have to learn this new thing because it's the newest thing, even though it's not at the beginning not very relevant to the thing that you're doing now, but trying to always expand that expertise. If you're that person who wants to do a lot of things, I think this is the perfect, at least for me, it was the perfect role. It's super fun. You get to learn a lot of new things. You get to tinker a lot with new technology. If you're the type of engineer who really wants to focus and on one particular type of problem and be the expert, the super expert on that particular problem, and only that, maybe that's not exactly the because you're going to be pulled away from that many times because there are other needs. So I think you really need to be a person who wants to do a lot of different things, I guess.
Do you think that you had a kind of unique experience compared to other advocates that, I don't know, that helped you in this role, or is it a common thing? Because like the way how you've been promoted, the way how you built your career, and how you shifted to the managing role from being a developer, and now you are doing what you are doing. Is it a unique path, or it's a common path?
I think it's might be quite unique in the sense that I think developer advocates sometimes are people, and my team is a perfect example of that. There are a lot of career switchers, like people who were doing something else. Like if instead of me, you would interview another developer advocate, you would get much more interesting stories than mine, because they're usually people who have been doing something else early in their career and then switched to development and then decided to apply some of the skills that they had on that other role into this one. Like, I don't know, theater actors, or one of my colleagues was a chef. And then they started their tech career, and they decided that they wanted to do something else. So, but I think I would love for that to change. I would love because the people who do that type of career change, like from being an actor to be on IT. Obviously, they are more used to taking risk in their own careers because they've already done it. Like, they are risk takers by default in their careers. My will would be for other engineers on a traditional path of engineering to do the switch if they want to, like to take the risk if they think this is something that they would enjoy. And again, a career is super long. You're able to go back and forth and do many different things. I've done a lot of different things on my 18, 20 years of career so far, 20 years already, I think. So I think the thing is that, again, for me, 5 years ago, I decided to take the risk, and it played well. It could have played badly. And I knew, I had no idea what to expect on Advocacy. It was a new company, a new role. But I said, let's give it a try. Maybe I love it. Maybe I hate it. But if I love it, great. If I hate it, I can always go back and do something else. So I would love for more people who are traditional engineers to explore this as a career opportunity. It's, again, for me, it's lots of fun.
I love it. I love it a lot, the way how you describe it, and this journey, this career. And one thing that I kept asking myself, and that I wanted to ask you, do you have your own observations on the challenges that you faced, if you faced any challenges at all as a woman in tech? Because and I just want to ask you about your perspective on the trends that we now see some positive shifts in trends, like the percentage of new tech industry hires that women have been slowly rising, and many organizations are starting to formalize their return to office policies to better support women needs. And how do you feel yourself in this environment, in this trend, and what's your observation here?
I truly think being a woman in tech is more difficult, and the reason is because of all these stereotypes, as you mentioned, that tech people have to be men. You have to. One of the things that I would love to do sometimes is, I remember I was in a conference not long ago, and one of the great things, by the way, if you speak at conferences, one of the great things is that conferences usually have a speakers dinner. So they get you go with the rest of the speakers for the conference for a dinner, which is great for networking, because in a conference there are a lot of people. It's very difficult to really get to talk to many people and remember who was who. But in the speakers dinner is like concentration of a small group, and I was the only woman in that dinner. And one of the things that one of the speakers was giving a cultural talk. He was about engineering culture. It wasn't a technical talk. It was an engineering culture. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I would love to do that sometimes, like doing some cultural talks. But in a way, I force myself to always give technical talks, so people know that I'm technical, so people don't assume that I'm not. And if you give a cultural talk, sometimes people will say, okay.
Yeah, because this is something that people expect from a woman at stage. Like, she's not going to talk technical. She's going to talk some cultural things about environment or something like that. And that is why you didn't.
Yeah, and it's unfair, and it's unfair. It's unfair that I have to refrain myself for exploring other topics just to ensure that people understand that they can talk about technical topics to me. And so that's one thing. But another thing is that a lot of companies are putting a lot of effort, which is very welcome, of trying to be more welcoming to not only to women. I mean, there are a lot of less represented folks in the industry, and making sure that they feel welcome and they have opportunities to be promoted and they have opportunities to explore different career paths. So I think there are efforts to make things better, for sure. I think there's still a lot to do. You need to make sure that the people who are less represented folks in the industry stay in the industry. Because one of the things that I in the case of women, I want more women in tech. But not for me. I mean, I want more women in tech because they pay, like, the industry pays well.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that. And I want more women to be able to access those salaries, to be able to access those career opportunities. So the gender pay gap is only going to get bigger if we don't get more women in the industry, because this industry pays well. So that's one of my main goals, for more women to be in tech.
And about balancing your career, is there a balance between pursuing technical career and managing careers paths? Like, is it possible to have a fulfilling career in tech as a woman without being pushed or forced into management to have this fulfillment? Because I can imagine like a woman building a career in engineering and developing might not be perceived as successful as her man counterpart that builds awesome products. And if the woman switches to a managing role, like, she's managing a developing team, and that's why she is successful, not because she builds some cool product. Do you think there is a balance?
I think it's a trap sometimes. Like, I think that's a trap because, personally, for example, in my own experience, I think I was offered a role in management early in my career because people thought I was going to be good at it, and I was good at it. I mean, it's not that I wasn't. I was good at it, but I think for me, if I could go back in, and again, that's a good thing about careers being long, because you're able to make amendments and change over and over again. But I think if I could go back, I wouldn't go to management that early. I would explore more IC. But I think it's very common for women in tech to think that they need to go to management to be perceived as successful. So it's my recommendation to younger women would be to at least to reflect. I mean, to reflect a little bit more. Is this really something that you want to do? And if it is, that's fantastic. Engineering manager is a fantastic role. I love it. You're able to make other engineers better, improve their careers. It's super rewarding to be an engineer manager and being a good one. But just think about it. Maybe it's not what you want to do, or maybe it's not what you want to do now. And you're able to say, okay, I want to stay as an IC at least 5 more years, and then I make a different decision. So once again, if you've decided that you want to be a manager, and you start doing that, and then you want to go back to be an IC, that's also a possibility. The good thing is that I don't think those two career paths diverge, and you're not able to get them back as well. I know a lot of engineers, women and men, a lot of engineers who went into management for a while, then back to IC, then back to management, and it's a pendulum, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. Great. I think we learned a lot, all of us, today, from you, from your experience, and I think a lot of us can get some inspiration from what you did. And the most interesting part for me was learning about developer advocacies, why they are so important, and if those who listens to us learn new stuff today, don't forget to give us likes to Ara Pulido. And for those who have more questions about your career, about your path, and what you are doing, where they can find you, see you, listen to you.
Yes, LinkedIn, basically. So I'm Ara Pulido at LinkedIn. If you have any questions, feel free to. And I post there sometimes, like what I'm going to do, etc. So if you want to follow, if you want to connect or ask a question, I'm more than happy to respond. And I'm actually Ara Pulido in many places, so if you want GitHub or any of the community Slacks, for example, the CNCF or the community Slack, I'm also Ara Pulido there. I'm easy to find.
Cool. Thank you. I will make sure to have the links to your profile in the description down below. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing with us. And for those who listen to us, thank you for being with us today. And we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye now.
Cheers. Thanks.
Yep.
There are no challenges that we couldn't overcome. Whether it is immediate infrastructure problems or planning a future project, we won't simply answer your questions. We become a part of your team to help you complete the mission. Our solutions consider the interests of your business and the combined expertise of the industry, as our staff is made up of more than a dozen experts in different areas who share decades of field-tested experience and knowledge with you.